Hello, pod smashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
Smash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer.
We're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast, smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right, and tonight we are continuing our Soul in the Console series, talking about the Nintendo DS, not to be confused with the 3DS, which we will handle at a separate date. We're just doing the regular DS line of handhelds for Nintendo. So we will talk about that, get into these episodes, follow a pretty rigid structure. So we'll get into all of that. Those who are familiar with the show, we'll get into that. Those who are not familiar with the show, then just buckle up because we'll talk a lot about the Nintendo DS. And we'll do that. But we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So we like to spend some time talking about what we're drinking tonight. I'll start.
Go for it.
Again, we're those who listened last week, we are doubling up as always to prepare for Termite's long absence coming up. And so I had mentioned last week how I just got back from visiting my parents. While there, I saw they had definitely their liquor cabinet. I mean, I hadn't been there in 2 years, so I can't speak to what their liquor cabinet has looked like for the past 2 years, but it definitely looked a lot bigger. Like there was more stuff on it. And I asked, like, why do you have all this stuff? And they said, well, because oftentimes we'll buy liquor for mixed drinks that we want to make and then never use it again. And up there, I saw they had a bottle of scotch. And I asked, where'd the scotch come from? I didn't know you guys to be scotch drinkers. And they said, well, we got some scotch for your grandmother because she visited a few weeks ago. And they never drank it after that. So I said, can I take the bottle of scotch home? They said, sure, we're not going to miss it. So I actually ended up drinking most of it there. But it's Johnny Walker Black Label. So if you're familiar with scotch. So I don't have a great taste for scotch. Like I'm learning. I'm trying to grow in my appreciation of it. I find it's harder to get over the smoky flavor than it was with whiskey to just like start drinking whiskey regular. But this scotch is a great like intro scotch because it's very smooth, being Black Label as opposed to the Red Label, which is not as smooth because it's less expensive. And I can taste the smoky flavor, but it's also like a really sweet whiskey as well. So very, very good. I only have a tiny pour though, because number one, I only had like enough left for like one more pour. And I also just didn't want to get blasted off of scotch tonight. So having already just drank a beer, it's like, let's go ahead and show some moderation here. So that is what I'm drinking. So what are you drinking?
Sweet. I am drinking a staple, a regular go-to Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA. That is their flagship IPA. It is amazing and awesome. And if you ever just want an IPA and you don't want to think about what you're drinking and you just want something good, that's what it is. Continually hopped for 60 minutes in an intense yet enticing hop-centric experience.
Just don't think about what you're drinking.
That's kind of what put them on the map. Like, historically speaking, is what
that
Dogfish
and 120. Like 120 is like the
well, that's
one
their
where it's
cream of the creme.
That's what I'm saying. It's like aspirational, and then they're like, but if you don't have the time, money, or availability of 120-minute, we've got 60-minute, which is just like a solid, strong beer.
Yeah.
So
notorious history of taking a 1970s football game, which was like a tabletop thing that vibrated to like move the players around on the field. Sam, the creator of Dogfish Head, took that on its and like made it vertical and used it to vibrate hops into the boil for 60 minutes at a interval that it was like perfect for dry hopping. Awesome. Yeah. So that's how 60-minute came about.
That's funny. It's funny though, because you're like, if you don't want to think about what you're drinking, like as if just don't think about it. Don't think about what's in it. Don't think about what it's made with. Just
it's so good. It's one of those like decision fatigue issues.
No,
I want a beer. I want an IPA, but I
know what
want
you were
like,
meaning. But what you said was like, if you want to drink something where you're just don't think about it. And then,
yep,
that's funny.
What do I want? You just want 60 minutes. Just go get it.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about tonight? Since we kind of like blew our load with the last episode, didn't we? Having not talked.
We did. We talked about all kinds of cool things. We talked about some trophies. We talked about things we're excited about coming up, video game related wise. So yeah, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about. So, do you ever go through those phases where like there's nothing? Like there's nothing new on TV, and you're kind of like, as a married man with kids, you like go through those times where you're just catching up on shows, right?
That's all I'm doing. Yeah.
But you ever hit that wall? Like, first of all, number one, I want to ask, do you have like a running list? And number two, do you ever like hit a wall where you're like, we have stuff on our list, but I'm just not super excited about it, and then like so you kind of drag your feet on watching stuff at all. Does that ever happen to you guys? Because it happens to us all the time.
Very, very, very rarely, because we get through stuff so slowly.
Yeah.
Like right now, we haven't finished Miss Marvel, but Westworld season 4 dropped. So when we finish Miss Marvel,
behind on Westworld,
I'll go to Westworld. But I don't know what's going on in Westworld at all, and so I'll need to like watch a YouTube video to get caught up, and then we'll watch Westworld season 4. But at least it's something. But because, like you mentioned earlier, I'm going on a long trip. When I get back, Better Call Saul will have hit, and Thor: Love and Thunder will be in the theaters. So we'll be like catching up on Better Call Saul episodes, as well as trying to get a date night together to go see Thor, and then catching up on Miss Marvel.
Thor.
And like, so we like the floodgates will happen.
Well, see,
so that's right now.
That's why I brought it up, is because right now I feel like it's the floodgates, right? Like we just finally finished season 4 Stranger Things, which I know is like, it came out this weekend, the last 2 episodes, but still, it still feels like it's like that's finally done. And then we've got Umbrella Academy, and we still have a backlog of shows, and we finished Obi-Wan. We haven't even started Miss Marvel yet. And it's just like, we finally caught up on Multiverse of Madness. It's like, what? Like deluge of things is coming out. It's a good problem, I suppose, but it's also like, and then Westworld, like we haven't even caught up on season 3 of Westworld. So I've heard season 4 is really good, so it's worth it. So I heard season 3 kind of sucked, but like season 3
was nothing. It was just like, what's happening?
Yeah, right. 3 sucked, and then 4, but apparently it was worth it because 4 is like bringing it back hard. So I'm like, oh, now I'm kind of intrigued by Westworld.
Okay.
So there's so much like I'm just like in a deluge right now, and it's good. Like I said, it's a good problem to have because it's the worst feeling in the world to like sit down with your spouse. You finally have time together, and you choose to spend that time watching a show, and it's like, well, don't know really what to watch, and you would like talk to yourselves. You're like, yeah, we could start this. We haven't started this yet. It almost always happens like after we finish something really good and really profound, and then we're like, oh man, nothing on my list like feels good. And oftentimes if we start it and get into it, then it'll be fine. But definitely. So like
it's kind of an amorphous list of shows that people talk about that we haven't watched yet. Like The Expanse is on there. I've heard there's a show called is it Severance? It's on Apple TV.
I've heard good things about Severance. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so like sometimes we'll have time for that. And The Good Place was an example of that. So
I've
we
listed
completely
a million
binged
shows to you, that you've never seen. Vox Machina, Doctor Who. Gosh, Lord Almighty, I've got so many things.
Yeah. So when it does happen, there's usually something we can watch. And The Good Place is the most recent example of that happening. About a year ago now, actually, was when we had a gap in shows. And we're like,
now you need to get the audiobook, How to Be Perfect. And
I need to hear that. Yeah,
it's good. It's
really what I was thinking about though, because I'm going on this trip where I'll be disconnected from the internet and content for 11 days, is bringing Oathbringer with me and maybe picking it up. But I can't restart. I cannot restart. I cannot reread. I just got to pick up where I'm at and be blind and be stupid, because like I've forgotten so much in the Stormlight archives.
Read a summary. There's some pretty good chapter by chapter summaries on their like.
I want a YouTube video that's like 5 minutes tops, no more than 5 minutes. That's like everything from Way of Kings, Words of Radiance. Like,
you're gonna hit things that you'll be confused by, but you can probably find one that will give you the basics. That's a good idea. Do that.
I was thinking. I'm toying around with that.
Do that. Well, then
I also have my Nintendo Switch backlog. I really want to get Pokemon Arceus done and Brilliant Diamond done and Skyward Sword HD done and new Pokemon Snap done and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So I've got like a Switch backlog that's deep.
Yeah, me too.
And so if I just bring my Switch, and I'm playing Persona 4, which is my main. I'm so excited to get back to Persona 4. I can't wait.
Wow, you're just like this is the perfect segue into our main topic, but we have like 2 whole segments to get through before we get there. So
yeah.
I'll instead say that like disconnected from the internet entertainment, and then also watching shows, having an abundance of shows to watch with our spouses may be our favorite things. But
80-bit pod smash is our favorite thing.
80-bit pod smash is our favorite thing. It's great because like I hear you go first, and so I'll never mess it up because I'll know when you do it wrong. But also the first thing that popped into my head was the wrong thing, and so then when you said the right thing, I was like, oh, thank God,
I corrected you. So, there you go.
It's great, good stuff. All right, so Favorite Things is a segment of our show where we get to share with you something that we are excited about, something that we're digging, something that inspired us or gave us joy or made us think deeply about something that we hadn't thought about before. And it's all in hopes that you might be inspired to go out and find your next favorite thing. I'll go first again if that's okay with you.
Do it.
My favorite thing is a gift that I gave someone else. It's always, I'm not a big gift giver in regards to like, it's not something that like I need to do to feel like I'm loving someone or whatever, the whole love languages thing. It's not really one of my love languages. That said, I do enjoy like identifying and finding a good gift for someone. So my wife's birthday this past week, her birthday is always 6 days after mine, which is hard because like I'm so focused on my birthday usually and what I want for the first like half of June. And then I only have 6 days to like completely like, it's like stick shift my brain into like, oh wait, now I got to try to find a way to make my wife's day special. Now that was the exception to that was in her 30th birthday. I just completely just like ignored my birthday. I was like, I don't care what happens on my birthday. I'm going to make my wife's 30th a good one. But then, again, that was 2 years ago. So here we are.
What did you do?
I arranged for her and her friends to meet at the vineyard. All your wife
Lake Anna?
and all the other wives. Yeah, something like Lake Anna or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
And
that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
My wife was involved.
It was around the time that COVID started, though. It was 2020, I think, is when she turned 30. So whereas like my birthday, I got to go like my 30th, I got to go like a arcade and see all my friends and all that stuff and just be out on the town. Unfortunately for her, it was like everyone go to this vineyard and everyone wear masks.
Are y'all the same age and 6 days apart?
No. We're 6 days in a year. Yeah, exactly. So
I remember planning your 30th. I did that. That was awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
So finally,
Sorry.
so it's her birthday. Yeah. So this year, same problem. I still had to like readjust my mind. So I pulled up the Amazon wish list for her and I snagged something off of her wish list, but she only had a little bit left, right? So like everybody, wish list as people grab stuff off it. So like my family, her family, people like snag stuff off it. So there's only a few things left, and they're all like either way out of my price range or like a couple like $12. I was like, dang it, what am I going to get her on top of this? So I got her the $12 thing that I thought that she would like, and then I was like, well. I expanded, looked across a couple of other wish lists, and on a shared wish list, we had an item. Now, this item we put on the wish list, and I was like, okay, I'm going to grab this for her. And then I caveated to her. I'm going to get to what it is. Don't worry. The preamble is for dramatic emphasis here. I was like, so I got you this thing. Now, I really want you to understand. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's something that I'm not sure you're going to like. But I'm getting it off of Amazon, so if you end up not liking it, then you can always spend $50 or you can always trade it in for $50. So that was kind of what I gave her the heads up on because I wanted to set expectations. I was like, this is kind of a gamble. I don't know if you're going to like this or not. I got her Animal Crossing New Horizons off of our shared wish list. Now, it was on our shared wish list because I don't really care about Animal Crossing New Horizons, but like I love the game as an idea for a non-gamer playing like tons of non-gamers, not only like got Animal Crossing back in March of 2020, but they bought Switches for it because so many people just loved the notion of that game, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. It was like all the rage. So I was like, I know my wife's gonna like this game. I don't really want to spend $50 to get it though for my because she's not gonna necessarily sign off on it for joint money. So it'll go on the wish list. And then this time again, it was just advantageous where she didn't have enough on her wish list. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll tack it on with this other cheap thing. And then I know I'm getting her something she wants. And then also I'm getting her something she might want. And she's been enjoying it. So that's my favorite thing is my wife is enjoying Animal Crossing. She's literally playing it right now while listening to an audiobook.
Yes.
And like, she's just like, I knew the minute she's fired it up, she was like, just like giggling and delighting in it. And I'm like, it's perfect because I don't know how to play it. So I'm all hands off. Like she'll ask me things. And I'll be like, I don't know. Like, I told her today, she was like, I don't know what those glowing things on the ground are. And I was like, whenever I don't know something in a video game, I like to turn to Google and find it. Like it wasn't condescending. It was just like that, what I would have done is just Googled it. Right. Yeah. So she did it. She reached for her phone. Like, do
you know what they are?
I don't. So I didn't stay long.
You can dig up a bag of money every day from the ground. Cool. Nice. And with the hole, if you plant money back into the ground, you can grow a money tree.
Wow. So she
once per day.
Have undoubtedly figured that out. So
anyway, because I am me, I have an orchard of, is that how you say it? Orchard? Yeah.
Orchard.
That sounded weird at first. An orchard of money trees. Fantastic. Because you can plant one per day and then you can move them. So I've moved all of my money trees into one giant. Anyway, go ahead. I'm so excited. I could go on about Animal Crossing. I haven't played it forever, but
but I'm excited that she's excited. I'm glad that she's now like, I mean,
I want to
go
to
monopolizing my Switch now, but like, but that's okay because like I don't use it all the time anyway. So it's nice to kind of finally find something that I know she likes. So I get the delight of being able to find a good gift. I also get the delight of getting my wife to play a video game without me having to be over her shoulder. So it might make her, again, just get her more used to the control scheme and everything, right? Like, so just, it's a win-win-win-win-win. And who knows, maybe she'll play more games with me now or be more open to playing games with me in her free time because she's doing it now in her free time. with this game. So yay! It goes back to all of our whole series about like teaching, getting non-gamers to get into gaming. Like this is just sort of my little baby steps in with my wife in that regard. So
I love it. I just sent her a text.
nice.
Like, oh my god, 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 you got Animal Crossing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
Sweet. My favorite thing is for our 4th of July celebration, which is close to when we're recording this on 4th of July because I'm leaving. My wife had to work, and afterward, my oldest son is with his grandparents, my parents, so he's away from us. So it's just the 3 of us, and we're like, what do we want to do? So we wanted to go out to eat. Obviously, we want to cook. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. And so we went to Bold Rock again. I think it was my favorite thing the last time I went, and they don't disappoint. I love that venue. I love that place. It's in Nellysford. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I think
Teach
so.
me your mountain ways.
I've never heard of Nellysford before, so
it's Nellysford, Virginia.
It's not my side of the mountain. You go to the other side of the mountain. That's all. Yeah. I know all those lands and worlds, but I don't know.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Staunton is pronounced Stanton.
It's Stanton.
And Waynesboro is like Waynesboro. Or something like people just like slang it out like Crozet is Crozet. I don't. Everything out here doesn't make any sense.
Crozet is French. No, the weird one is if you see a town called, it's spelled MC like McDonald's, McGahey. It looks like McGaheysville.
Yeah.
It's McGaheysville. Don't ask me why it's McGaheysville, but there is a town called McGaheysville, and if you see it spelled out, you're gonna be very confused.
Nice. But anyway, we went to Bold Rock again, and Jude, our 3-year-old, there's a huge field at the bottom. Like you go through the restaurant and tap house, and you order all your food. There's a kitchen window to pick it all up. We got a high chair. We sat. They had celebratory 4th of July hot dog things on the menu. So we got a hot dog. It's awesome with like beer cheese on it, or cider cheese, if you will. It was amazing. It was awesome. And then Jude, the 3-year-old, just runs everywhere, gets a bunch of energy out, gets all sweaty. He has a blast. And it was great. I got some stuff on tap. There's a Honeycrisp cider I've never bought or tasted before. It was amazing. And they have an Imperial cider, which Imperial just means like it's really, really boozy. Mm-hmm. So I was curious to try it. And you cannot taste any of the booze because it's cider and it's like 9%. It was wild. And they serve it in like a smaller serving size. So you can't indulge as much as you would if you got regular cider. So I am dying to get friends and like some sort of like group of folks out to Bold Rock. This venue's awesome. It's just nice. Really cool place. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's my
favorite. All right. Fantastic. All right. So that leads us to our last segment before our main topic, which is DLC. Stands for downloadable content. We skipped it last week, and so now it's back. And it is a segment of our show that is a conversation we wouldn't normally have about video games. And sometimes it's related to our main topic, sometimes it's not. But since our main topic is the Nintendo DS, and I don't have a lot of experience with that console, this week's not going to be related to it at all. Instead, I want to riff off the idea of by the time this episode airs, it'll be August 1st. And so August being the last of the summer months, and, you know, hopefully the end of what has been a very long, very arduous drought of new game releases. So I want to kind of riff off of that and sort of have a small little DLC conversation about, and we talked a little bit about last week, we talked a little bit about like what is coming out. And so I wanted to sort of have a kind of conversation about what was kind of the last time that you recall having a drought that like lasted this long, and what was the game that like made you, that ended the drought, and then sort of like, and was there another drought after that, right? Was it sort of just like an island in the midst of a long drought, or was it like, and then this came out, boom, 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 boom? Like, can you recall a time in your life when you were just like, man, I really wish something would come out that was new and exciting? And what did you like? What was the game that broke that trend for you?
See, this is why one of many reasons why I love trophies. Because I have a journal of every game I have ever dabbled in, at least on the PlayStation side, which is where I primarily game, and I can go look and find them. Most of what I can remember is December of almost every single year
Yeah.
is an influx of games for Christmas that you didn't want to buy at release, but all of the big fall releases are behind you.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go with the most notable one I can recently remember is December of 2020 going into 2021. So it would
Okay.
have been over a year ago. And the game that got me through it was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal game. I also dabbled in Crash Bandicoot 4 at that time. It's when I played through. I say dabble, but playing through it, not trying to get trophies, is dabbling because the game is ridiculously hard and stupid frustrating.
Mhm.
So Crash Bandicoot 4 followed up by Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which was just a good, meaty game that came out at a wonderful time. I got it at a wonderful time, I should say, in December, because it bridged the gap for that entire winter until Cyberpunk came out that February of 2021, which is when I leaned into Cyberpunk really hard. So that's the one that sticks out in my thoughts most recently is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
That's good. I'm trying to like remember exactly what game broke it, but I remember I basically had a drought where I was able to then play. I think it was in the summer. It was either summer or there was a spring. Now, we've talked about this a lot. How like spring has become just basically like new fall for video game releases, right? Like it's become the new hot, and that's happened in the last few years. But I can still remember a time a few years ago where springs weren't like the greatest, and I remember like. Again, it was either like during March or April. I was trying to pull up PlayStation trophies at work and I just forgot my login. So, but there was a time where I was like blasting through the Borderlands games and there was like nothing else to play. So I was like, okay, this is the time to do it, right? And getting the platinums. And those are long platinums. So I remember doing that. I remember what broke it. I also recall, I think it was 2020. There was this crazy spring release year that like started with, I want to say it like started with like a Monster Hunter game maybe, and then ended with, no, it wasn't Monster Hunter, it was something else. It was Resident Evil 2. Started with Resident Evil 2 remake and then ended with like freaking Last of Us Part 2. And I just remember like every month having something to do, and then suddenly that like July and August having nothing. And it was really discombobulating. I remember that's when I sort of like circled back around and finished Persona 5 Royal, even though that was a brand new game that year.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what broke it, but then something then came finally around. I remember something coming around and breaking it in the
PlayStation 5.
I guess that was it. Yeah.
Astro's Playroom, Spider-Man, like,
and those
were
all
following you here.
Yep. And that was
Yeah.
it. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that come to mind most recently. And again, I haven't been like following console games for as long as you have.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole journey with that all started in like 2017, I guess, when I got my Switch. So there's only been a few years where I've like noticed this whole kind of ebb and flow, but there we go. All right. Well, that is DLC. We want to hear, listeners, what your like biggest droughts were and what games got you through it and what games broke the habit, right? If we're Linkin Park here, breaking the habit.
Ooh, good pull. Yeah.
I also hate myself a little bit for even doing that.
Just own it. It's fine. We all loved it.
No, okay, you're right. You're right. I did. I hated myself for loving it, but I did love Linkin Park back in the day when they're
amazing. Yeah. I'm just gonna.
They're not amazing.
I loved them
they're
too.
trash, but they're good trash.
What?
They're enjoyable trash.
No, they're good. Go back and listen to it again. You'll still rock out. It'll be fine. Just
all right.
Society love to hate them.
That's true. They don't like to hate Linkin Park as much as they like to hate Nickelback, but Nickelback deserves all the hate they get.
Yeah, Nickelback deserves all of that.
For sure. Look at my graph. You never see that?
Every time I do, it makes me laugh.
You ever see that meme though, where they just like he holds up a different thing each time, then they like edit it to sound like something else. So he'll be like, "Look at-"
No, I have not.
Oh, the best is look at this graph, and then there's another. It's him holding a bag of meth and like a little bag of white powder, and he's like, "Look at this meth." It's ridiculous. There you go. There's your recommendation today. Is the meme. Anyways, we want to hear what your biggest droughts were. What broke the habit, and show it to us in the form of a graph, like a Nickelback song. Termite, where can they do all those things and more to engage with us?
I just want to know about like a good time in your life when you were playing some fun games when there wasn't big releases out there. And you could let us know over at 80BIT Podsmash, 80bitpodsmash.com. That is our landing website with links to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, and our Discord server. You can jump in and start up a conversation about any of these things. And you can respond to our own talking points, if you will. Give us your thoughts, comments, concerns, feedback, and ideas about things you would like to hear about. And you can do all of that there. If you are listening to us by way of like YouTube or on Twitch and you want to know where you can get our audio link, there is also an RSS feed at 80-Bit Podsmash, as well as links to Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, etc. We're all there. New episodes go live every Monday at midnight, in case you're wondering our schedule. So every single Monday morning, the fresh new work week starts with 80-Bit Podsmash in your ear. Let us know your ear. Let us know what you think.
Sweet.
We'll be there.
All right. Well, that leads us to our main topic and last one for the night before we finally get to take a long break from recording and Penguin just gets to focus on editing the show. Here we go. Nintendo DS, sold in the console. Let's talk all about this system, which I missed out entirely on, but would still love to talk about. So yeah, we always start these souls in the consoles with the history of the Nintendo DS. How did this little box come to be? Is there any fun, interesting stories or nuggets about its development that is noteworthy? So the development began in around mid-2002. The original idea came from the previous Nintendo president at the time, Hiroshi Yamauchi, who wanted them to make a dual-screened console that had two screens. This is Nintendo getting into that area where they're like, this is one of those ideas that sounds good on paper, but like on practice, I think had some troubles. This is clear in its inception, right? Like, oh, two screens, that sounds so cool. Why wouldn't you want two screens? The more, the better. But like, then you deal with the idea of focus and stuff. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that more in sort of its legacy and whatnot. So on November 13th, 2003, Nintendo announced that it would be releasing its new product in 2004 without saying any details, but it would be the sort of successor to the Game Boy Advance. And then it was released it was announced under the codename Nintendo DS, which didn't change. I think that's funny because usually the code names change. And then it kind of came out a few years later. So the current president at the time, Satoru Iwata, said, "We've developed
Rest
the Nintendo."
in peace, Sword.
I know,
sir. He is amazing.
We've developed the DS based completely on a different concept from existing devices in order to provide players with a unique entertainment experience in the 21st century. And they at that time had released that it was going to be that, two separate 3-inch LCD screens with separate processors and up to a gigabyte of semiconductor memory. Gigabit. That's different. That's 128 megabytes. So not a gigabyte. Anyways, So you want to talk any more about that development process?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, there was like so much hype. I actually remember this now. We're starting to enter like the soul and console releases where I'm alive and like coherent. And I was in high school at the time and following the industry as much as I could through like gaming magazines. And the Wikipedia article you've quoted here also says prior to its release, the DS was marketed as an experimental, quote, third pillar in Nintendo's console lineup. And I remember so much speculation and excitement. Like we have the GameCube, we have the Game Boy Advance, and now we got this new thing. Like, what is this going to be, and what is that going to look like? And it was eventually on to be the DS. There wasn't a whole lot of like drama or controversy. The console did go on to be like the number one 154 million consoles sold worldwide, and there's a whole lot of iterations, and so it's combining all of its like. There's a DSi and a DS Lite and a DSi XL and all of those combined, whatever, like made this. This is by far the most successful handheld console ever. Yeah. So,
and came out in September and November 2004. Yep, for 150 bucks. Not bad, but still pretty. Well, I guess what's 150 bucks adjusted for inflation now?
Terms?
Probably significant. Yeah. So
I should. I love doing the inflation calculator. I don't know if you know about this, but you can Google like inflation calculator. It's like if in 2004 I purchased an item for 150 in 2022, it would be $232, which is more expensive than a Switch Lite, but less expensive than a Switch.
Yep.
And I guess we have the Switch. We have the Switch OLED, which is $350 right now. Yeah, you have the Switch is $300, and you have a DS Lite or the Switch Lite $200. So. Yeah, $232. That sounds right in line with the price at the time, but $150 just sounds so much more digestible.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so you're reading the book called Disrupting the Game by Reggie Fils-Aimé. I don't want to read from it, but Reggie talks about his experience being introduced to the prototype of this DS and how he walked into the room very new to Nintendo. Reggie, right? Like, come on, the
Right.
Reginator. We know who Reggie is. Very new to Nintendo at the time, and he walks into a room and there's this prototype. It's like circuits and like soldering equipment boards, like prototype model. And in this DS were two screens, but the significance of that was that the bottom screen is a touch screen, and there's also a built-in microphone, so you can use your voice, or you can blow into it, or like it responds to your human actions, like talking and touching, which was crazy at the time. There was no iPhones, there was no smartphones, we didn't have touchscreen devices other than like high-dollar Palm Pilots that like executives would use. So the idea of like a mass market consumer product that had a touchscreen was unheard of at the time, and even using that as a gaming product would change the dynamic of what developers would need to think about in order to develop games for this thing, using entirely new ways of thinking, which is touch and voice. And we talked about during our Game Boy Advance episode how the integration with GameCube, using the Game Boy Advance as a controller in some aspects of specific GameCube games, was kind of a prototype to this, where now you have a single handheld device that has two screens on it. One can show a map and one can show the world. And so like revolutionary, just completely innovative. Like I feel like this was Nintendo continued, like this is one example in this sea of many examples where Nintendo furthers like way outside the box. I mean, just like we had the PSP was here, like the PlayStation Portable, and it had these awful discs that were like UMDs playing movies and games. It was super expensive. It was clunky and it's like slow. So Nintendo just crushed it with this. Like they continue to innovate here. So I think that's kind of the story of its launch.
Sure, I'll say that its history. It had several different like iterations of just the DS itself. There were the DS Lite, then the DSi. So the DS Lite was in 2006, the DSi was in 2008, and the DSi XL. This is where they started doing that whole thing where they had the weird different versions. The DSi XL and the DSi LL. Those were both 2009, 2010 respectively. Now, this is, again, the reason we're not doing the 3DS is because the 3DS, for all intents and purposes, is a different console. Like there's a line in the sand. You can't play 3DS games on the DS. But still, even that, there are probably some people out there that argue whether the DS and the 3DS were of the same line. But there's no official discontinued date. Wikipedia says it was absolutely discontinued, but there's it hasn't been disclosed that it's been discontinued by Nintendo. So on the DS Nintendo fandom wiki, they speculate, I think, that it was discontinued somewhere around November 2015. So that's crazy lifetime. Wow. That's 11-year lifetime for the 11. 2004.
No, you're right, 11. Yeah, 11 years.
That's a crazy life cycle.
Wow, math
for the DS. Yeah. So good for it. Good for Nintendo. So so let's talk then about that's sort of the history of it. What is this thing though? What's the hardware of? Well, we'll just start with the DS itself, and then we won't get too much in the iterations other than sort of notable increases and strengths and stuff like that. So
hardware, it had a dual ARM 7 and ARM 9 processor, and there's no specs about that I'm aware of.
Looks
like
65, 67 megahertz clock speed for the main one, and then the coprocessor was 33 megahertz clock speed.
Can you do me a favor while I'm reading off the rest of the specs? Go back and look at the N64 hardware specs for me, and bring up the Game Boy Advance. That's on the Wikipedia page. Take you 2 seconds. Yeah. So the resolution of the screens, they were both. There's two screens, of course. So 256 by 192 pixels, which is. We're at 4K, 2,560 or whatever the crap, and this is 192. Systems sold 154 million, of course, but RAM had 4 megabytes of RAM, and that was upgraded to 16 megabytes of RAM on the DSi and the DSi XL, and it had over 2,000 games released. The system was capable of N64 RAM and processor.
Sure. 4 megabytes of RAM, 8 megabytes with the expansion pack, and then processor... 93 megahertz for the processor, looks like. Was it speed? And the Game Boy Advance was 4 megahertz for the sound, I think. No, sorry, 16 megahertz. Okay. Yeah, 16 point, and then there's an additional sharp processor. I don't know what that's all about, but it's saying 16 megahertz. So the
Interesting.
DS is significantly stronger than the
Game Boy Advance.
Game Boy Advance, but not quite as strong as the N64 processor wise. But like
It
not
was
that
always,
far
like,
behind. So
not that, yeah.
not
It
that
was
far
fun
behind.
for me to always speculate about how like the advancement of handhelds always take over the console prior to it, like a generation late.
Sure, yeah.
So the Game Boy Advance was like the Super Nintendo, and the DS was the N64 portable.
Sure,
But if you look at the hardware, you'll see that's like a gimped version of it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I guess the DS having
fall
two
behind,
screens at a lower resolution didn't require as much processing power to run N64 games, but it launched famously with Mario 64,
Yeah.
but a better version of it with more characters, and like it looked a little better. It ran a little better.
That same
and
amount,
it
same
used
RAM. Used the same amount of RAM.
yeah,
without the
4
expansion.
megabytes.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
without the expansion pack. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's interesting to think about.
And it like processes
kind of
two
where it
separate
sits.
screens, right? The processor is processing less.
It
on
has
the
two
screen, I
processors
guess.
instead
Yeah.
of one.
Mhm.
So that's where it
Yep.
really sets it apart. You said it's got a 67 megahertz ARM9 and a 33 megahertz ARM7. So I imagine there's a processor per screen.
It offloaded sound output, Wi-Fi support, and takes on second processor duties in Game Boy Advance mode. So it definitely was. Yeah, I mean, if you factor in the coprocessor, I was gonna say if you factor in the coprocessor taking off offloading some of the actual stuff, then you're looking at 100 megahertz like additively. So like that's N64 as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, and it kind of was like the games graphically looked a little bit better than N64 games, and you could take it with you on the go. It was amazing. It also had a Game Boy Advance port on the bottom, so you could play all of your Game Boy Advance games. So it was a logical upgrade from that, which kind of flies in the face when it came out. When it came out, we knew what it was. It was announced. We're like, how is this a third pillar of Nintendo? Because you have a GameCube, you have a Game Boy Advance, and you have a DS. But the DS can be an upgrade from the Game Boy Advance, so it's not really a third pillar.
It wasn't.
Which I still like.
A weird
marketing.
That was a
I guess.
Marketing thing. Yeah, that was an attempt at. I think that was an attempt at like we're not ready to discontinue the Game Boy Advance yet. But we have this thing, so here's the third one. Yeah, so definitely.
But I wonder if the Game Boy Advance port was added later, and at the time that Iwata said that, when he said this is a third pillar of Nintendo's like strategy, maybe there was no conversation about backwards compatibility. Sure. I don't know.
Well, and then
we're not
stylus,
in the room where it happens.
The stylus was so different, right? There was the little there was a touchscreen and a stylus, so like maybe he was thinking that people would design games like exclusively with stylus that would be unlike anything that like was out there, and therefore a third pillar, right? A unique experience. Possibly that was sort of maybe part of the impetus for that statement, but then it didn't end up materializing, right? The stylus was kind of briefly used for some things. A lot of first party titles used it, but like other titles didn't really utilize the stylus as much, to my knowledge, to my understanding, of course, not being someone who had one. But so the thing had a rechargeable lithium ion battery, so that's cool. Once again, outshining even the latest Xbox consoles as far as the battery is concerned. So
I know, because the Xbox controllers. But I mean, the PSP had a rechargeable battery, and the Game Boy Advance SP had a rechargeable battery. So this having one was kind of just par for the course at this point.
Yep,
but still kind of new.
Yep, cool. So, and did we talk about audio? Not that I know what any of this means, but it had stereo with 16 PCM/ADPCM channels facilitated by a Mitsumi MM325B. No idea what half that means, but cool. Stereo, 16 something channels stereo is what it had. So the form factor, obviously, we can kind of talk about when we're talking about the handholds, we kind of got to merge the controller discussion with and form factor with the hardware, because that's what they are. So it was kind of like a flip phone design. It had the little thing for the stylus, very blocky and square. But as
by thing for stylus, you mean like a little carved hole in the side?
Yeah. That's what I
Or in the bottom. I don't even remember where it was in the original DS model. But yeah, there was a carved slot that you could pull the stylus out. It was on the top. If you folded it in half, it was a rectangle, and the stylus slot and the DS cartridge slot were on the top. The Game Boy Advance slot was on the bottom.
Yep.
But yeah.
Had both a D-pad and did it have no, it didn't have the it just had the D-pad for directions, right? No joystick yet.
Just D-pad. No joystick.
D-pad. It had the 8 inputs, A, B, X, Y, L, R. So it had the shoulder buttons and then start and select.
Yep.
And then, of course, the touchscreen and the microphones were kind of the new additions to the typical input options there. And yeah, that's the form factor and the controller all in one with the hardware. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the 3DS. Anything else you wanted to
Nope,
hit
not a
on
3DS.
about that?
The original
I'm sorry,
Nintendo DS.
the regular DS. My bad. My bad.
Yep.
My B. Cool.
It's hard to say because the 3DS kind of took over ubiquitously, but yes, the original DS.
Right. Yep, yeah. Exactly. So, all right, cool. Well, do you want to talk about definitive games of this thing? You're more experienced than I in this regard.
Oh man,
much more.
Yeah, the original game. So it launched with Super Mario 64 DS. That's very notable. It was the original. It was a port of Mario 64 with extra characters and new things, new stars. I'm looking up how much it costs now because I need it in my collection. I cannot believe I never had it. I've only played other people's copies of it. So that was monumental. And Metroid Prime Hunters was like a first-person shooter in the Metroid Prime universe, but it was like a spin-off. It didn't really have a lot of story depth to it. So that's notable. And you use the touchscreen to control where you look, and you shoot with the L button. So it's like you're using your right hand to control the stylus if you're right-handed, and then the D-pad would control where you move. It's a first-person shooter, so it was unique. Like the screen on the top that's not a touchscreen was your screen, and so the bottom screen was where you would move your stylus around. It was awkward. There's two Zelda games, two mainline Zelda games, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Both use the touchscreen to navigate, so you would not use the D-pad at all. You would just hold the DS, and you would use the D-pad and the L button if you're right-handed for something else, and then you would use the stylus to navigate Link around. And they had the Toon Link Wind Waker style. I absolutely loved Phantom Hourglass and completed it. Spirit Tracks is one of two Zelda games that I've never beaten of the entire franchise of Zelda. There's only two titles I've never completed, and that is Zelda 2 on the NES and Spirit Tracks on the DS. So those are notable. There's a lot of obscure games, stuff I've never played before, like Hotel Dusk, Room 215 apparently is awesome. There's a Viva Pinata game that's really good. Trauma Center, Under the Knife 2. Someone in our audience has had to have played these because these are on the list of like definitive games.
Yeah.
Planet Puzzle League, which is a successor to like Tetris Attack and Pokemon Puzzle League on the N64. There's an RPG by Square Enix called The World Ends With You, and the art style is the person who drew Kingdom Hearts. So there's an Animal Crossing title called Wild World. I have it. I played the mess out of it. I loved it. It's one of the entries of Animal Crossing that I adore. WarioWare and Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2.
Yeah, and WarioWare showed up on the on the list of best games of all time. So definitely, definitely
WarioWare touched.
Definitely had
a version of that on the DS. Yeah.
And then you talk about, but it's funny because you talk about Black and White, and I believe Black and White was the one that Chris said that he never played. And I bet you it's why. I bet you because he never got a DS. That's why.
Probably, yeah. And there's Black and White 2 as well. So Black 2 and White 2. Also the re-releases of Silver and Gold. So Soul Silver and Heart Gold. The remakes were on the DS, which were amazing.
I remember those coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a port of Chrono Trigger on the DS that was amazing. Phoenix Wright is a franchise that exists. Now it's like multi-platform, and that started on the DS. Professor Layton. Also, there's a Castlevania game, Dawn of Sorrow. I'm not even like reading everything. I'm just skipping around. New Super Mario Bros., which is the start of the franchise that then went on to the Wii, New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And then for the Wii U, there was a launch title, New Super Mario Bros. Wii U. And then New Super Mario Brothers 2 on the 3DS. So those 4 games all started on the DS. Wow. And don't forget the successor to Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga that started on the Game Boy Advance. Its sequel also on the DS. Its third entry also on the DS. So and then Advance Wars had a sequel. So like a lot of sequels. Mario Kart DS is, at least according to GamesRadar.com, the best 3DS or the best DS game there is, which Mario Kart DS was amazing. As a Mario Kart fan, it's definitely up there in the ranking. I love it. I was playing it tonight in preparation for this episode.
All right, I'm gonna have
grabbed
to
my copy of Mario Kart DS, and
this list is
that's
long.
it. That's the last one. That's it. Yeah,
okay,
that's
good. Great.
Yep. Perfect time to be cut off.
Because we have a lot to talk about too in regards to accessories. So let's launch into that. So again, in the absence of a controller to talk about, or rather emergence of a controller, we will talk about the attachments and the innovative accessories. So this thing's got a laundry list of attachments that we also need to get through to talk about. So let's talk about some of those.
The only ones I like used I knew about a lot of these. The ones I used were the Pokemon Walker that came with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I
Yeah.
loved that. And I think that might be it.
Yeah. Well, it had lots of things.
Yeah.
You had,
Yeah.
there was, well, this is more of an accessory, sort of a software accessory. It didn't come with a browser on launch, but they would release like a cross-platform version of Opera for the DS, which I
Yep.
found interesting.
Mhm.
But it required the memory expansion. So it had a memory expansion pack that's notable. I don't remember one of those kinds of things since of course, the expansion pack on the N64. It had a headset, which again, that's pretty not too surprising considering the time it came out. It was during that kind of peak of the start, the sort of renaissance of online gaming. So having a headset seems
But
logical.
did it have a microphone built into it? Is that what made it a thing?
Had an official headset that plugged into the headset port, had a headphone connector, and proprietary all on the bottom of the system had the inputs for it, the ports for it. It had a rumble pack. I found that kind of funny that there wasn't like rumble features built into it, the original one. And then a guitar. There was another MP3 player, the Play Yan, similar to that of the Game Boy Advance, and then a guitar grip controller.
Yeah, I remember the guitar controller.
So
Guitar Hero on the go. Yeah.
Now, didn't the DSi and DSXL, didn't they have different accessories, or did they have stuff built in?
They took things built in. So the DSi, I don't want to misspeak here, but I think it had a more robust Wi-Fi connection, maybe Bluetooth connectivity internally. So
yeah, it said it had a digital camera too, outer digital camera.
Yep.
So that's why. That's right. That's why that was on it.
Yeah.
The first iteration of the DS Lite, though, it had a sleeker appearance, larger stylus, longer lasting battery, and brighter screen.
Yep.
And then it was the only other one to have backwards compatibility with the Game Boy Advance. So the DSi and the DSi XL, did not have backwards compatibility, which I think is notable.
Correct.
So
only the
and
DS
then of
Lite
course
did. In fact, in gaming communities and like retro gamers and collectors, the DS Lite is the best Game Boy Advance out there as far as the screen is concerned. It's a gorgeous screen. It's super bright and it looks super sharp.
That makes sense.
Way better than any iteration of Game Boy Advance. So if you're a Game Boy Advance player, get a DS Lite because it's amazing.
Sweet. All right, and then finally, of course, the DSi XL would be more or less the same as the DSi, except it had bigger size with better viewing angles, improved battery life, blah 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 blah. So cool.
Yep, I have here that the DSi has faster processor, more RAM, 256 megabytes of internal memory, an SD card slot, 2 cameras, and its own online game store, which would be the first one for Nintendo since the Wii. I don't remember what the timeline is. I guess 2008 was 2 years after the Wii. So the Wii came out. That was Nintendo's first online storefront, the eShop. Then the DSi was the successor to that. So then the portable handheld also had its own storefront. So you could buy digital titles, which was huge, at the time. Like that was a big deal. So
it's worth noting, of course, that I believe the Nintendo DS, it was the first handheld that Nintendo developed and built with a Wi-Fi connection built in, a Wi-Fi port or adapter. No, it looks like it used a USB. It had a USB
They made
connector.
an adapter for the original one, but it had wireless multiplayer locally without a link cable. That was the big deal.
Right. So then they had features like download play, of course, to, sort of
that's where like one person would own a game, like say Mario Kart, and then you have friends get together and you can all play together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
With one copy. Yeah.
And then Picto Chat, you could communicate with like little pictures since it had a camera. And
that was a launch software included on it was installed right out of the box, right? PictoChat. So everyone who had DSs that were in close quarters, you could like ping them and talk to them.
Yeah, and which is like wild. you saw that kind of feature. You saw that like it confused the heck out of me, but you'd still see that as late as the Wii U, where there would be the PictoChats still like shareable across that system and stuff like that. So cool. And this is interesting that they note here on Wikipedia that like they had their own firmware that they designed to like boot the thing. And then like it would launch into the games, the PictoChat and stuff like that from the firmware. So fascinating.
Yep.
Cool. So that's it. Let's talk then. Finally, we'll end with talking about the impact and legacy. What is this? What did this thing sort of bring to gaming as a whole, specifically advancing Nintendo's line of consoles, but also what, of course, then did it bring to gaming as a whole? What is this thing going to always be remembered for, other than, of course, as you noted, just like it sold like gangbusters?
Yeah.
I feel like I am of a minority of people that am not impressed by this thing overall.
Mm-hmm.
I found the idea of, like, again, the stylus and the second screen just seemed to me very, very backwards in regards to, like, it seemed something that on paper sounds so cool.
Yeah.
In practice is like, no, you're taking your hand away from the inputs I care about, and you're taking my eyes away from the screen I care about. That seems wrong, Nintendo. Like, stop trying to get me to do that. Like, the Wii
Mm,
was a much more elegant iteration of what I think they're trying to go for, which is trying to innovate in the regards of using new technology to create new inputs, right? In this case, motion control. In that case, motion controls.
yeah.
In this case, the stylus, right?
Yep.
Touchscreen, right? And then, yeah, the idea, like, Nintendo, stop trying to get me to look at another screen, right? The screen I want to look at is, I want to look at one screen. We're playing video
Mm-hmm.
games. Games are designed to have, like, very last minute, right? They did the same thing kind of with, like, the Batman Arkham games on the Wii U, where it's like, ooh, your inventory's on the second screen. I don't want to look down at the second screen to see my inventory. I want to look at the screen I'm looking at, which is my
Yeah.
TV. So I kind of always I'll say saw through that. I don't mean that they were, like, trying to trick you. I simply mean that, like, it never was something that impressed me. It just looked impressive on paper, and then in practice, it always, like, I remember playing it for the first time, the DS, and I was like, this is clunky as heck. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my hands or my eyes. And I hate feeling like that as a gamer, lifelong gamer. But hey, like, I am of the minority, right? So that is
Right.
Clearly this thing did a lot of things right, and so I will let you talk about that, because I don't really have a lot to say about
This
it.
is Nintendo's first foray into the mass market, and you might have heard of a game that I left off of my best DS games of all time, but it is there's two games that like were the staple DS sellers, and that is Nintendogs,
Oh yeah,
where you could raise your own dog, and Brain Age.
Yeah.
Those two games put this Nintendo DS in nursing homes, bridging the gap of gaming to the elderly. It is in the purse of many, many females, way more than any PSP ever found their way into.
Touché.
And like, you look at the demographics, I'm not trying to be sexist at all. Like, everyone plays games, but Nintendo had a very specific marketing direction to opening up and breaking what was previously a very male dominated marketing audience target to, like, everyone. We're going to take video games to everyone. And this was before the mobile games did that. So this was the precursor to the Wii. The Wii was kind of the focus of the home in the living room version of what that strategy was, which was to appeal to the mass market of humanity versus just gamers.
Right. Expand to more than just.
It makes sense that it didn't reach you because you're a gamer. And they weren't targeting you. They weren't targeting me. But I
hate
loved
not
the
being the
DS
target.
at the time.
I want to be catered to all the time. I want my needs
Right.
and preferences to be the first ones that anyone pays attention to. I'm kidding.
But you talk about legacy and impact. How many people's first video game was on the DS or the Wii?
Yeah.
And then they've now adopted a PS5 or a Series X or a PC, and they're currently playing their Switch and their Steam
Gen
Deck.
Z, right? This is to a lot of Gen Z kids. This is probably what. Like my version would be the N64 or the SNES, right? Like their version of that is this console, right? Because this would be the thing that's like, parents would be like, I'll get you this, but I'm not going to get you the Wii. I'm not going to get you an Xbox. I'm not going to get you a place. I'll get you a Wii or a PC, right? No, I'm not going to get you a like powerful PC to play World of Warcraft, but I'll get you a Nintendo DS. So a lot of probably at the time disappointed kids got this thing and then like fell in love with it, and then when they were older were able to get their own Nintendo Switches and stuff like that. So no, you're probably right about that. I think I can see that for sure. So
awesome. That's its innovation. That's its like legacy and impact, is mass appeal.
I love it.
Also, the second point to that answer that question is you love your Switch, right?
That's true. I got you.
Congratulations.
I see
the fact that the Switch exists is because the DS was the prototype.
And there was definitely a quote. No, I really want to hit a quote because speaking of its impact on legacy, only because like this thing sold so well that this quote makes so much more sense now. At the time, Nintendo was putting all their eggs in this basket because following the lukewarm GameCube sales, Hiroshi Yamauchi stretched the importance of the success on the company's to the company's future, making a statement which can be translated from Japanese as, "If the DS succeeds, we will rise to heaven, but if it fails, we will sink to hell." So yeah, in many ways, like Nintendo, this thing kept Nintendo afloat, right? Yeah, a little dramatic, but like it makes sense, right? Like this thing did keep the thing afloat after the GameCube was comparatively a flop. And so good on it. Good on it. I don't have to like it for me to recognize that it's still like super important. So you've sold me.
And
you sold me on that notion.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good gems on the DS, like those Zelda games. Like Phantom Hourglass is fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And so it's worth, if you ever stumble upon one. I think, wasn't someone supposed to give you a DS?
They were. Ago? My sister-in-law was supposed to give me a DS, and I don't know whatever happened to that.
Get on that. I know she listens to the show. She was on our show once.
Yeah, she was.
Give him his DS. Let him play some games.
Give me the DS that you were going to generously give me because you weren't using it anymore. I will claim no ownership of it until it is literally
I'm totally
mine.
Being facetious. Yeah, I'm just being
fair. All right,
annoying cousin.
Absolutely.
But I do want to speak to so the Game Boy Advance being a controller to the GameCube, 2 screens, TV, handheld, the DS, 2 screens, touchscreen.
Sure.
The Wii U obviously was that like touchscreen in your hand with the gamepad, adopting the motion controls from the Wii and the success therein. And then that iterated to the Nintendo Switch, which you can dock to your TV. You can take with you on the go. It has a touchscreen. Like you can see the evolution of technology, and it started here. It kind of started with the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube stuff, but that was way more like prototype and super niche. This is not. This is mainstream. Yeah. So that's the
You're
DS
really trying to like interfere with my ability to end this episode. Like,
you're really trying to end the whole show?
I mean, look at that beautiful time right there. Like under an hour.
But that was my last point.
That's
to
good.
Answer this question.
No, I know.
So,
yeah. No, you're. I'm not complaining. I'm simply like. Okay. I was like about to wrap it up, and you're like, but no, I want to hit on
that was my last
more
point.
good stuff, good points.
Yep.
But certainly, I was like, no, so close. So we will not be under an hour, although after editing, it may end up there. But we do want to hear, listeners, what your thoughts are on the Nintendo DS. Were you like Penguin, not impressed and missed out? Or were you like Termite and bought in and like several million other people, beloved owners of DSs? Or were you just like, I was playing PlayStation, Xbox the whole time, or I was playing World of Warcraft the whole time? Let's hear those thoughts. Let's hear those experiences and more. Termite, where, once again, can they share their thoughts if they have them?
Tell us how you are currently browsing eBay to buy your own Nintendo DS to catch up on that library over at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80bitpodsmash.com, landing website where you can find links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, Discord, and twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, which I don't talk about a whole lot, but we do sometimes Twitch stream. So it won't be for, in the fall, we'll probably pick back up a little bit. We got plans. So go to twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, 80bitpodsmash. Subscribe to us there so you'll be made aware of what we're doing, as well as our podcast link, our RSS feed and podcasting platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts for your subscription convenience. And episodes go live Monday at midnight every single week. We have not missed a single episode, and this is episode 254. So keep the train rolling. We now have content for years. Years to go. Yeah. Every week we bring you a unique topic that's non-sequential. So jump in whenever you want.
Cool.
80bitpodsmash.com.
Do it. All right. Next week, which for us is going to be a long time before we record this. It's going to be like a month from now before we record it. But we will be airing August 8th. We'll be talking about the environmental impact of gaming as a whole. I stumbled across, to tease you guys, a fascinating graphic that was basically showing like when you factor in all the things like hardware waste and energy consumption, PC gaming is actually terrible for the environment. But console gaming is not that much better, so we'll talk about all of that and more, just sort of looking at a large angle shot of what is gaming doing to the environment and how can we improve it, or how can developers in the industry tackle that. So, we look forward to that next week, and we'll see you then.
See you next week.